there's this really big misconception that to be a good pilot, you have to be some sort of master dogfighter super craziness. And I don't think that's at all the case. I think a good pilot is somebody who can size up a fight, pick a target and say, I'm going to kill this one guy or two guys, and then go through with that plan and survive the engagement. A lot of the time you see pilots who, the prey guys are a good example, they'll rush into a fight, and sometimes it'll absolutely bite them in the ass. They're fantastic dogfighters, but sometimes they don't have the greatest decision-making skills. So that's one of the things we're going to be talking about today. First thing, though, is we're going to talk about key bindings. Key bindings are very important for aircraft because that's going to give you every bit of performance you can get out of your aircraft without putting on a special frame. There are two types of key bindings that you need to balance in an ESF in order to get every advantage you can. You have very slow, smooth controls that you use for aiming, and then you have very fast, twitchy controls that you use for dogfighting. If you have the default key bindings, you're going to have an issue with both of those. Aiming is going to be a little on the twitchy side, but then if you're trying to do a long turn, you're going to have to move your mouse up and down along your mouse pad, and then you're going to have issues. So what you want to do is you want to balance those two types of key bindings. The way I do that is I have a very low sensitivity mouse that's at 1500 DPI on 0.25 flight sensitivity. This means that I can aim really, really well. That's part of the reason why a lot of people think that I hack. But then, to balance that out and allow me to dogfight, which is something I'd be incapable of doing otherwise, I have buttons, pitch up and pitch down buttons on the side of my mouse that let me go immediately from aiming to dogfighting. Ultimately, how you come up with your own key binding setup, that's up to you. I'm going to post a picture sometime after this of what my key bindings look like. But you want something that isn't going to hinder you and it's going to give you every advantage possible. But now that you're in a Mossy, let's say you have your key bindings here in a Mossy, first thing I want you to do is press the scroll wheel down on your mouse and just mouse around. Okay, this is your free look key binding. Alright, now you press T, that's third person. Those two view sources are going to be the biggest weapon that you have against other pilots. Combined with headphones where you can hear aircraft engines, aircraft weapon sounds, you're going to want to paint as complete of a picture as possible to give yourself an idea of what am I getting into, where's the flak, where are the enemy aircraft, are there tanks in the area, are there lock-ons. You bring in all that information so that you can make the best decision you can about how and where you should engage a fight. There's a term that I came up with, control, and the idea is that I'm going to engage where I want, when I want, in with the pilots or the targets of my choosing. And what free look and third person allow you to do is bring in a lot of information so you can make that decision that, okay, this is an area where I have the advantage. I am going to be calling the shots on every single step of this fight until it's done. And if you can do that and you can say, these are my limits, this is what I'm capable of, and you can make these calls, you're instantly better than a vast majority of the pilots on the server. The real fun part comes when everything goes to hell. So the next time you get to a 90-degree angle, I want you to hit and hold the afterburners until they're all the way depleted, which is shift. Okay, when your afterburners are out, you're going to realize it takes forever for afterburners to come back to full, especially if you have fuel tanks. And that is going to be one of your big weapons and one of your big get-out-of-jail-free cards against other pilots, is being able to preserve your afterburner tanks as much as possible. Not only for being able to chase down other pilots, but for if you get in a position where, okay, there's 3 Mossies behind me, or 3 Reavers behind me, they've all got lock-ons, that's not a fight I can win. You can afterburn out, and maybe you're going to be able to escape. The same goes for flares. It is a one-time use per fight, essentially. Get out of jail free card. So how does that all integrate into like actual play? If you're ever playing during the day, or during the evening for that matter, a lot of the guys in Bravo and Delta fly together. we're a bunch of us are ex-libs guys, and say you want to come fly with us and get that practice in for decision making and being able to size up fights. Flying with us is gonna probably be the best way to do that. What you'll be doing if you're flying with us is normally we'll be flying up a little bit higher, so say 750 to 950 meters.
700 is the sweet spot.
Yeah, 700 being the sweet spot of outside of flak range, but still being able to balance that render distance that we all hate so much. And we'll be using free look mainly to look for targets, and once we see them we're going to call them out and we're going to see what else is in the area, and then we're going to engage that target. That's something that if you come fly with us for a bit, you're going to get a lot of practice in, and it's something fairly easy to do, but most pilots don't get any practice in it because they pull their ESF from a tower, immediately fly into battle, they die. So they don't get any practice because they are flying into flak that they're not seeing, they're flying into ESFs that they're not seeing, and they're just getting picked off. So this is one of the most common types of dogfights, facing an enemy ESF that's like 200 meters out, and it's a head-to-head dogfight. The first thing you want to do is, if you're not getting flaked, he's the only pilot in the area, there's no other immediate threat to you, is to just hold your ground. I would just hold descend, and the reason for that is because pitch up is a far more natural of a move for your hand than pitch down is. Pilot that's attacking you, he's pitching down as you're approaching, which is a really weird lead for him, and for you it's a hell of a lot easier to get those shots in. For a vast majority of pilots, they will come to you. They won't try and hover at like 50 meters and try and pick you apart. Once this pilot does charge you, you've descended, he's now passed over you, all you have to do is just pitch up and can just finish the 180-degree turn, and now you're behind. The next big step is communication and being able to call out targets. And air is a lot like ground play when it comes to callouts, but it needs to be on a bit bigger scale, especially when you have the short render distance. So say what we had earlier today with Bravo is that we had a bunch of ESS up over Raven Landing, and every callout we had to do was going to be one of this threat north of Raven's Landing, giving a number, what the threat is, a direction, and a reference point, because sometimes we're going to be in a position where that target just doesn't render for us, so we gotta head that direction. That's especially true for enemy liberators. Like a lot of the DBS guys will gun for our liberators, so it'll be one DBS lib, Sungray North high, and then everybody's able to zerg on him and take him out before he's a big threat. If you're in a bad situation, let's say Mitmoran's behind you and you don't see any of us, you need to say, I am in this hex, I have a Reaver behind me, and I'm going this direction or to this hex or to this landmark.
The altitude is also really important too.
Yeah.
You definitely want to call that out.
Yeah, and just low, medium or flight ceiling or high. Anything that'll give us an idea of where you are so we can head to you and save you. Now if Mitmoran's behind you, you're probably going to die immediately. But if it's anybody...
So for the majority of us, our tactic should just be, hey, let's ram him.
Yep.
Yeah, good pilots win dogfights, but great pilots are never in dogfights in the first place. There is absolutely no shame in running. One of the nice things about having your afterburner tanks full all the time is, oh, there's someone behind me, I'm going to hold shift, and then he's never going to see me. Ideally, you have enough situational awareness to know that, okay, this pilot is coming for me. I'm going to get in a position where I'm going to have every advantage possible, and then I'm going to kick his ass.